Hey Siri, is the ketogenic diet good for me?
Okay, I found this on the web for Is the Ketogenic Diet Good for Me? Check it out.
Take it with a grain of salt. Hey, what's up, everyone? This is your friend Brandon. I am a registered dietitian and a personal trainer, and I'm welcoming you back to a Grain of Salt Nutrition podcast. I'm happy to do this again. It's been a while since I did it. I had tried it during the pandemic, but honestly, I don't know. I just wasn't feeling it at the time, so stopped, kept my equipment, thought about it. Um, but really looking forward to kicking this off, going with the YouTube route as well, so we can do some visuals and just have fun with it. Um, so today, honestly, I wasn't prepared. I just wanted to like reintroduce myself. I know it's not the best way to hear a podcast, right? Like, oh, he's not prepared, but I am in a way because I was kind of mad. Um, you know, started my day off pretty great. Gym, good food, happy, right? Doing my nutrition stuff, doing my training stuff, saw clients, works great. I'm in a happy place. But I came across a couple of posts that were sort of bashing dietitians. And this just made me think of what the concept of this episode is, so somewhat prepared. Um, and that's really just kind of who's influencing you, right? Because this is what I saw was on Instagram. And I don't have TikTok, but I know I see the reels and stuff like that. But clearly, social media is right. It's like our biggest influencer. And the whole point of a grain of salt nutrition podcast is within the name itself is take everything you hear with a grain of salt. And there was this like generalization made about dietitians these days. Dietitians these days, they'll tell you you can eat whatever you want and that's supposed to be okay. And this is bad because, who said Snickers aren't good, right? So you shouldn't have Snickers, and yet dietitians are saying everything in moderation. And so they're kind of just like everything else in the society is black and white, it's left, it's right. And so all of a sudden, these influencers or whoever is giving you your nutrition or health advice is saying, oh, dietitians are in bed with pharmacy, big pharma. They're telling you, you should do this or you should do that. That's a generalization. Do they exist? Sure. Just like half these influencers are existing via sponsorships in the clothes they're wearing or the products they're selling you, right? So these things definitely exist, and I'm not going to knock that. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's a very good generalization to make for most dietitians. And when most dietitians are making sort of generalizations like that, it's because we're thinking about the individual and not the black and white. Of course, a diet that has like no bad foods in it, everything is natural, everything is organic, is the best diet for you. I mean, who could disagree? But the idea that that's what everyone is able to do, that's where your starting place is right now, is kind of foolish. And so that's what I hate when people are just generalizing these things and saying all dietitians are bad because they preach, all foods fit. Um, I think I wanted to kind of stress a little bit about like what are your levels of influence, how to sort of discern what's a good place of influence, and then just kick it off with just making sure you're paying attention to what this whole podcast is about, is taking everything here with a grain of salt. So let's start again with the nutrition industry, right? Obviously, that's where I am from. I am a registered dietitian. I have my bachelor's and master's in nutrition, and everything. My 9 to 5 and even my extracurriculars in terms of work has to do with that. But you're going to get a lot of advice these days from what you see on social media, right? And these influencers, whether they're nutrition coaches or even dietitians, right? I mean, again, if they're being influenced to some degree, anyone who's telling you anything black or white, be careful, right? And any opinion that you get and it's not specialized towards you, be careful because it doesn't make sense, right? Everything, we're falling in different demographics, different times in our lives. Like, you know, 5 years ago, I had way more time for the gym. I was able to eat a certain way. Now, I'm a dad. right? I have less time for the gym. I have to cook for a family, or family cooks for us. Um, and so where I'm at right now is a lot different than where I was, and this is me specifically. So if I was to go back, and trust me, I've looked at like my notes and my fitness pal and my journals and all that to see what my diet and my exercise routine was like before my 30s, without a kid, right? With more time to myself. Motivation's different. Like, I can't do that. That shit hurts. I don't want to do that, quite honestly. Um, so even for me, giving myself my own advice, it's just like I'm not even the same person I was 5 years ago. So how can I make one statement about one thing for everyone? It's typically not the case. I mean, there's some rooted things, eat your vegetables, right? Shit like that is true. Um, but whenever you see something that's generalized and they're saying like this is how to do it, this is the only way to do it, I don't believe in that. Um, so an example that I would give for a situation like this would be, you know, if someone's giving you like a recommendation about like how much protein you should have, or carbs are good or carbs are bad, or like this is the best supplement for this, you know, what are their influences to telling you this? Like, why are they giving you this approach? First of all, what's their knowledge background? And quite honestly, like I give kudos to like the people who are in the health industry that maybe didn't go the traditional route. Like, you know, you're very into nutrition, you're very into wellness, and so you've studied articles, maybe you took like a different type of certification, you know, you really do your due diligence and your research. Like, you are probably more knowledgeable in certain situations when it comes to like the holistic approach from a food and supplement perspective than me in certain areas, right? And I don't knock that. You have more time. You've structured your resources and your time to a specific concept. But, you know, how are you able to discern this individual? Like, what was their understanding of what they read? Was the research they read valid, right? And are they capable of understanding? That's some of where like the traditional learning comes into place. Like, how do we look at a research article and figure out if it's bullshit or not? So, you know, you see headlines and it can say something like, oh, drink this and you're going to lose 37,000 pounds in 3 days. And I mean, that's an exaggeration, but something of that nature. And someone may say like, this is what they did. And all of a sudden you realize like they're sponsored by that company, whatever. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to be careful with who you trust and their opinion. The other thing is too, and this will kind of like go into the fitness realm. But again, you know, trainers are going to give nutrition advice, which is okay to some degree. When you look at somebody's health and you're evaluating it from the outside, that's dangerous. For example, bodybuilders can be super lean, right? Physique is beautiful, abs for days, and you know, you want to think you can trust what they tell you. They know what they're doing, and there's probably a lot of gold in their knowledge on how they're training, so on and so forth. But if we were to look at the inside out and look at some of these lab values on some of these people, elevated blood sugar, elevated cholesterol, kidney issues, liver issues, hormonal imbalances, right? And that's because what they're doing may be working for them from an aesthetic standpoint, but maybe not necessarily from the inside out. And to me, that's more important, right? Let's focus on your inside. I'm game. I'm down to get you the six-pack abs, build the booty. I want to do that for you too. But I want to make sure we're doing that in a healthy way, right? And that's where what's that knowledge? Where's that knowledge base coming from? And unfortunately, besides the influences we may get from supplement companies or other companies that influencers will have, sort of biasing what they tell you, there's also just sort of like that anecdotal person themselves, right? So I know a lot of people who do a little bit and get really muscular. And again, you know, if I'm green and I'm walking in and I see this dude and, you know, he's big and he's giving me advice and he's telling me this is what he's been doing. He's been chewing on lettuce and, you know, like eating beef jerky all day and then doing this certain kind of lift. Potentially, if I wasn't smart enough or I didn't know any better or if I didn't have any other influences, I might do what he's doing. right? Because look at his results. Like, man's fucking 2% body fat, boulders, shoulders size of my head. He's got to know what he's doing. Um, and even if what he did worked from him both ways, inside out, outside in, so labs are good and he's healthy, he may not know the right way for you, right? And what he's going off of has worked for him, but maybe him or her, but maybe not specifically what works for the general population, for someone in their 20s, for someone in their 40s, for someone who has issues with weight loss or weight gain. And so what worked for that individual isn't necessarily going to work for everyone else, isn't necessarily healthy. So being careful again with just like what you're seeing in terms of diets and physical activity. There's so much junk out there. Like, there really is so much junk. And I don't want to knock everybody or everything because I'm not the end all be all. I'll listen to everyone, but I want to know, like, how do you know this? Like, are you doing this because you read about it somewhere? Where? Who told you about this? Are you doing it and it worked for you and now you're preaching to other people? Everyone's got to start somewhere, and I've learned a lot over the years that you can't knock someone who's new, especially like a trainer or a dietitian, a health coach, right? They're in the learning process themselves. And I don't want you to not go to someone who's a novice in their field because, you only want the best of the best. Like, obviously, if you can pick that, that's great. And I'm not saying I'm the best of the best by any means, but, there's a learning curve with these things. So you might have a trainer who is very well intended, right? He's trying to, he wants his clients to succeed. He wants to not injure them. He wants them to achieve their goals. And he's brand new, took the exam, is certified, ACE, NASM, whatever, which is still difficult, right? You still need to have a knowledge base to pass these tests. But is maybe now using more of what he does to now teach you. And he's young, 23, you're 45, he's male, you're female. He can meal prep and batch cook and is fine with eating grilled chicken all day because he wants to show off his abs on the beach, Miami, and spring break, right? Versus, you got other priorities that are more important. And so the problem is the advice coming from that person is catered to him, rooted in something good, but doesn't apply to you, right? And so I think, it's important to figure out just the right fit for you. And I tell a lot of people, you ask any of my clients, as their dietitian, as their trainer, if we don't vibe, both ways too, don't get me wrong. Like, as a business, I want to make money at the end of the day as well. But like, if we're not vibing either way, if we're not understanding each other, that's a part of it as well, right? I need you to learn with me, to live with me, to vibe with me so that we can train, that you can trust me, I can trust you, and go with it. So there's a lot of different sort of angles to take this when it comes to who do you trust. Do your own research. Listen to a lot of podcasts, not just this and hopefully this, but there's a lot of good, viable information out there. And it's annoying that, we block out certain things, right? Like for example, I'm a big Joe Rogan fan, right? And he's very polarizing to a lot of people. Offhand, he probably comes across as like someone who's super right, super male, right? Dominant UFC and all this stuff. But he allows a platform for the conversation to happen with multiple people with opposing opinions, opposing expertise on similar subjects or the same subject. And what's good about that is it allows you as the listener to sort of try to figure out like who's making shit up, who makes more sense, what makes more sense to you. And at the end of the day, there is no one size fits all. So, both people can kind of be right, both people can kind of be wrong. And that's what I hope to do here is try to give you some solid information based on what I know is right, not what's right for me. I may give you stories about what's worked for me, what hasn't, but what's right in general for certain things in terms of health, nutrition, fitness, supplements, and even just wellness overall. Sometimes just kick it and just vibe and just chill and talk bullshit, right? I hope I can do that here too. And I think that was the problem with my last attempt at this podcast was I wasn't really being myself, right? I was like I was worried too much about what people would think, worried too much about, how I have to like say this a certain way and maybe, pick this research article and sprinkle it in here. Fuck that. I'm a wealth of knowledge, right? I have this expertise for a reason. Trust me, vibe with me, let's have fun. And I think that's the best way for me to approach this going forward, because again, in order for you to even hear what I'm saying, you probably need to like understand and be cool with me, or else you're just gonna be like, whatever, it's bullshit. I don't even want to listen to him. He's boring. So hopefully we got some fun with it too. Plan on having some guests and things of that nature, just digging in deep in some things. So, to kind of wrap up a little bit about today, I want to make sure that I again give kudos to people who put their heart and soul into the work they do, no matter what their education is, how they did their learning, what's motivated them. I think it's cool that we live in a world in social media that can positively highlight, things that are good for you. But at the end of the day, make sure you're picking people and picking research and picking your information wisely. And I'll kind of sum it up with this story, right? So got the New York hat on. You think about what's influencing your decisions now, right? Compared to someone who tells you, and I'm going to pick a little bit on these influencers who say dietitians ain't shit, because, that generalization just like really just irritated me today. But someone who doesn't understand you isn't the best for you either. Black and white, again, sure. Don't eat cookies, eat only like lean protein, make sure everything's organic, do everything you can to increase the quality of your food and never have alcohol and all this. Me personally, I take you back to my history, right? Growing up, I'm a Spanish kid from the Bronx, born and raised, still living in New York, living in Westchester now. But my diet growing up, come on. Like, people who know, but vegetables, corn, potatoes, that's it, right? Maybe a side salad with my meal if I was lucky. And it was iceberg lettuce with some tomatoes, once in a while some avocado if we were lucky. The plate, I talk about a balanced plate. We'll talk about all this in future sessions about what good nutrition looks like, but a balanced plate has vegetable, protein, fat, carbohydrate, lean protein, not fried. You're talking about chuletas, fried pork chops with rice and beans and corn and potatoes and plantains all in the same plate. So 5 carbs in portions that are this big, fried food, pork. Like, that's my starting point. And for me to get to where I'm at now, like, I think, J. Cole's my guy. He got a song and he's talking about almond milk, right? Like he's talking about drinking almond milk now. Like, that was not even a thing. Whether it wasn't a thing back then, just being healthy wasn't even a thing. Like, going to school, $5-10 to get breakfast and lunch before school. That's a bacon, egg, and cheese with a Arizona, right? $2.50. That's a pizza after school. They got the special where you get like the fruit punch soda and then you grab some snacks at the store, a zebra cake and some chips. That's my baseline. And that's just rooted in where I come from. And then, like a typical Spanish meal at night. And that's where I worked from all the way until now. And now, almond milk, right? Now, just like veggies at every plate. Double my portion of veggies. I grill and air fry my vegetables. And my proteins, and I'm choosing more lean protein. And of course, I drink and I chill and I eat some food. And don't get me wrong, I do that often too. I love cookies. Levain cookie, shout out, it's my favorite cookie. But during the week, Monday through Friday, extended, try to be really healthy. Weekends, I want to socialize, so I want to have a beer, I want to have some wine. If we go out to eat, I'm not going to be like, wow, this doesn't have... No, like, let's get some pasta. Let's get some Spanish food. Let's get some Asian food. Give me double the rice. There's times for that. So that's where I get so mad, because it's all about moderation and meeting someone where they're supposed to be at, right? Not just preaching what you believe or what is 100% perfect. That's bullshit. Progress is progress. So if right now you're drinking 4 cups of soda, you're having double the portion of rice, and your dinner is always like fried food, like small adjustments, 2 cups of soda. Oh man, he said drink soda, drink less. That's going to help, right? Of course soda's bad for you. You shouldn't have it. But like, who am I to say that right now when, you're semi-addicted for many reasons, not in your control? So that's my rant for today. Hopefully this is pretty interesting to some people. If not, it's just a place for me to air out my thoughts at the end of the day. I'm really looking forward to a new way of doing this podcast. Again, hope to have some guests on, fitness, nutrition inspired, maybe lifestyle, wellness, some fun things as well. But I'm glad y'all able to kick it with me. I want to do this in more of an informal setting so I could be true to myself and the way that I practice what I preach and the way I talk to my patients. So thank you for joining season 2, which really should be season 1 of A Grain of Salt Nutrition podcast with me, Brandon Caraballosa. Looking forward to you next week. Take it easy, boys, girls, everyone.